You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Arya Whitner, and this is your NXT update for Wednesday, May 31, 2017. Thank you all for listening. It is an actual newsworthy episode of NXT this week. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff being set up for the future, and it's, not just your normal episode of NXT where nothing much happens. We kick off this week, by the way, with a brand new NXT theme song. If you feel like it's deja vu all over again, that's because we just had a brand new NXT theme song about 3 or 4 weeks ago. But hey, we need another one. But anyway, the non-theme music part of NXT kicks off this week with Tommaso Ciampa, the evil, horrible, psycho killer himself, hobbling down to ringside on crutches. A couple of fans chanted psycho killer, but a lot of the fans were chanting, why, Tommaso, why? When he finally got the mic, Ciampa called out Johnny Gargano before sarcastically pointing out that Gargano wasn't here tonight. Ciampa said that he's learned more life lessons in the last 2 weeks than he did in the first 32 years of his life. He said that he was injured 2 days before TakeOver, and all he heard about was, would he wrestle? It was never a question in his mind if he was going to wrestle. It was a question in the rest of our minds if he was going to wrestle. But, Ciampa let it go by. He was going to decide to fight with his best friend on their side, and they were going to kick some butt and take the titles back. Then the second day comes, Friday before TakeOver, and everyone was ready to replace him. And they started tweeting and talking about all these great dream teams that Johnny Gargano could be a part of now that Tommaso Ciampa was injured. And Ciampa decided to just get on with it and decide to fight with his friend, decide to fight and win the NXT Tag Team titles. And then during the ladder match, he felt something pop. He realized there was a problem with his knee, and as he laid there and decided to keep fighting for these people and for his best friend, then at the end of the night, he looked across the ring at his best friend after they lost their match, and he looked at his best friend, he looked at his brother, and realized that Gargano was just like all these people. Just like all these fans are ready to replace him, so was Gargano, and Ciampa refused to let that happen. Ciampa refused to become an afterthought in DIY as he went out with his injury. So that's when he made his decision. It's not his fault. It's the fans' fault. It's Johnny Gargano's fault. They had something special, and we, the fans, ruined that. If Ciampa was going to go away for a long, long time, then Johnny Gargano was going to go away for a long, long time. TakeOver Chicago was supposed to be DIY's moment, but instead, TakeOver Chicago was Tommaso Ciampa's moment. He announced that he was a 32-year-old man, and this wrestling ring is not replaceable, and neither is Tommaso Ciampa. But you know what is replaceable? These fans. They were never necessary. They were replaceable. And he promised when he returns, he'll be the most dangerous son of a bitch in NXT history, and that he is professional wrestling whether you like it or not. So needless to say, that was a hell of a promo by Ciampa to kick things off. They said that they didn't get into specifics, but they said that Ciampa was injured. He was going to be out for a while. They still haven't bothered coming up with why Johnny Gargano won't be around. They just keep saying that they do not have a medical report for him and that he's just not there. Now, you might recall during Raw and SmackDown this week, they had commercials talking about how this week in NXT was the glorious celebration of the NXT champion, Bobby Roode. It was the only thing promoted for the entire show. However, plans are subject to change, even after the show got taped. Bobby Roode cut a promo in his vehicle and said that no one is invited to his glorious celebration. He's going to have it in private, but he will be here in NXT next week. So yes, one thing's promoted, and it's not going to happen. But we do get something good. We do get the WWE United Kingdom champion, Pete Dunne, versus perennial jobber, Danny Birch. Now, a few things here. Pete Dunne got a superstar reaction coming out. So we'll see if Bate is on these NXT tapings and see his reaction. But in one night, in one match, Pete Dunne went from a guy to a star. And honestly, I don't think it's since the Shield's debut 5 years ago that in one night they made somebody a star. And we'll see, hopefully this has the staying power, especially the staying power the Shield had. Hopefully this doesn't get messed up, and hopefully he rises to the occasion. Birch, by the way, I called him the perennial jobber because I am pretty sure he has not won a match in NXT. He has no credibility. He was in NXT before, got released, and got brought back earlier this year. And again, I don't think he's won a single match. However, he's just really good. He should be pushed. There's a lot of guys on these shows that are not as good as him, and he's there putting them all over. Pete Dunne, however, is just amazing. He gets near falls with a punch to the face, and you believe that punch to the face may be the actual finish of the match. We went to commercial at one point and came back with Dunn twisting Birch's head almost completely around. Birch got a couple near falls, one with a really hard headbutt. Dunn used a snapback suplex. He used an X-plex, but Birch got out of that. Birch turned Dunn outside in instead of inside out with a hard clothesline. Almost picked up the win with the draping DDT. We'll see how much longer he uses that move, by the way. However, the champ hit a German suplex into the turnbuckles and won with the bitter end. After the match, Dunn cut a promo saying that he had to watch a boy hold the championship since January, and that it was his pleasure to take the title at TakeOver. He stated that the history of the WWE UK division will officially be listed as starting with the Bruiserweight owning all of it. Velveteen Dream cut a promo about how he wasn't going to cut a promo. He was angry at the ambiance of the promo area, and so he cut a promo about how he was not going to cut a promo. We then got a video package narrated by Paul Ellering talking about the year of the Authors of Pain, because while not specifically mentioned, in the next week or two will be their 1 year anniversary on TV. Despite the constant negative press covfefe, Andrade Cien Almas is out here next to wrestle Cesar Bonanni. Percy Watson really has a problem with Almas going out clubbing after all the matches. Again, and I've said this before, NXT is on at 8 p.m. So if we're supposed to believe that this is a shoot show and it happens at 8 p.m., it airs at 8 p.m. So Andrade Almas goes out clubbing until 4 o'clock in the morning and then has a match 14 hours later, and the complaint is that he just doesn't have the time to be recovered and ready to sports entertain. Almost beat the hell out of Bonanni. They claimed later that he took 95% of the match. I think 95% is not nearly as much as he actually did. He beat the hell out of Bonanni with hard chops. He kicked this man full force. I don't think you would hit this man as much. If this was real, you would hit this man as hard as Almas was hitting him here in this wrestling match. And Bonanni's strikes looked really weak, especially in comparison here to Almas. And of course, because Almas is on a losing streak, he has to lose here to the jobber as he picks up Bonanni for a suplex, but Bonanni turns it into a small package and picks up the win. Almas got really mad for a minute, but then was just like, whatever, and calmly walked away. I'm sure he ultimately realized that he beat an inferior athlete for 5 minutes and then lost when he slipped on a banana peel. So I wouldn't worry if I was Almas. It's not like he got run over and squashed. He pretty much had the match won, and he, like I said, he slipped on a banana peel. Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, believe it or not, have finally returned to NXT. If you recall, about 2 or 3 months ago, Kay was wrestling Ember Moon. Ember gave her the Eclipse. Billie Kay feigned an injury, and for about 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, they kept doing these angles where they would claim we were about to be updated on Billie Kay's injury status, but it would somehow be turned into something else. So Billie Kay's officially back. Billie's officially healthy. And they were at the WWE Performance Center mocking Ember Moon because, she's injured and karma sucks and all that stuff. But as luck would have it, they were mocking her just as the doctor came out to sign her medical release. And that scared the iconic duo because not only are they back, but so is Ember Moon. It was announced that in 2 weeks, the reigning, defending, undisputed NXT Women's Wrestling Champion of the World, Asuka, will once again defend her title in a triple threat match against Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross, but this will be an elimination match. Hideo Itami was pissed after he lost the TakeOver, so he went backstage and threw some chairs around in the locker room. Kassius Ohno and Funaki tried to calm him down, but Itami swore at them and threw water on the floor. And then we fast forward 2 weeks from TakeOver to earlier today when they were both standing outside and a WWE video stalker filmed the two from afar. They shook hands and made up. But it was funny because the way the whole thing was filmed, you saw as they're shaking hands, suddenly a white car comes into focus and appears to be pointed right at Kassius Ohno and about to run him over. And I was convinced that he was going to, and thus starting a whodunit angle over who ran over Kassius Ohno. Not only that, but was Hideo Itami in on it? However, that was not the story of it. Instead, as the car got within 10 feet of Ohno, we cut away. That led us to the main event because since Kassius Ohno was not viciously run down by a car, he teamed with Roderick Strong to take on SAnitY's Eric Young and Alexander Wolf in our main event. The referee, by the way, I'm sorry, I can't remember his last name. It's Drake. It's the guy, he was an indie wrestler. I do not like him as a referee. I mean, he's decent enough. He's learning. That's great. Good luck to him with his learning. But it happens in every SAnitY match, and because for some reason he's the referee for every SAnitY match, where he is watching everything happen. He is watching Killian Dane getting ready to interfere and go charging at, in both cases, Roderick Strong or Kassius Ohno. And just before impact, he will, for no reason, because he'll be watching the whole thing, he'll quickly turn his head in such an absurd manner that you're like, okay, dude, you're totally trying to rip off these baby faces here. But other than that, if you ignore the fact that the referee is an idiot, this was a pretty good little match. Not as good as the Pete Dunne match, but a very good match nonetheless. SAnitY seemed on their way to cheat their way to victory when No Way Jose returned from his quote-unquote injury and stopped Killian Dane from interfering. So Roderick Strong pinned Eric Young with his release suplex into a backbreaker, which was called the End of Heartache. The fans are thrilled to see Jose return, and SAnitY was in a state of shock. So that does it from an excellent episode of NXT that I managed to talk about for over 16 minutes. Damn! Remember 2 weeks ago I think I talked for 8? But this week, hell of a show! I had a lot to talk about. Thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you again in 7 days.
You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.